At my parents' 20th anniversary, my mom joked about my sister having feelings for my husband, and he ended up revealing her affair with the neighbor in front of everyone. Family milestones are supposed to be heartwarming, but when my parents invited my husband and me to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary, I didn't feel joy. I felt uneasy. Not because I dislike my parents, but because of my sister. For most people, attending their parents' anniversary dinner would be automatic. But for me, it came with hesitation. The main reason for that hesitation has always been my younger sister. Despite being only 2 years apart, she and I never built a strong bond. Much of the tension came from her resentment toward me, which has existed since childhood. Growing up, our parents were extremely strict, especially our mother, who had a military background. She raised us with the mindset of discipline and constant competition. Everything became a contest, whether it was racing to catch the school bus or trying to complete chores faster. At first, it felt harmless, even normal sibling rivalry. But with time, the dynamic grew toxic. I was always academically strong, good grades, high test scores, glowing report cards. Instead of encouraging my sister, Emily, to grow at her own pace, my mom constantly compared her to me. And when Emily didn't measure up, the punishments were harsh. Sometimes she wasn't allowed dinner. Other times she was forced to stand for hours until she was physically exhausted. Watching her suffer broke me inside. Our mom would lecture her with lines like, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" I was even ordered to tutor her, though Emily never liked studying. She was naturally playful and creative, always wanting to be outside rather than sitting with a book. No matter how hard anyone pushed, academics just weren't her strength. The more comparisons my mother made, the deeper Emily's bitterness grew. And while I succeeded in school, I too felt suffocated by the pressure. Failing even once meant a storm of disappointment from my mom. I tried to defend Emily at times, but it always backfired on me. Then, before I left for college, Emily did something drastic that shocked all of us. She attempted to take her life by swallowing an entire bottle of sleeping pills. Thankfully, our parents found her in time and rushed her to the hospital, where doctors managed to save her. That incident finally forced my parents, especially my mom, to confront the damage they had caused. They suddenly realized how much pain Emily had been carrying for years. After that, things shifted dramatically. Therapy began, and my parents treated Emily as if she were fragile glass, terrified of breaking her again. Over the years, I apologized repeatedly to Emily, trying to repair the rift. But even now, my parents still coddle her, treating her like a child who can't handle life. When pressured to go to college, Emily threatened suicide again, so she never pursued higher education. That meant no degree, no stable career, and an endless cycle of short-lived jobs. Either she missed too many shifts or clashed with coworkers. Today, she still lives with my parents, contributing nothing financially. She doesn't pay rent, doesn't help with bills, yet spends her own money recklessly, often on partying with friends. My parents, terrified of upsetting her, continue enabling her. That's why when they asked me for financial help, I refused. I understood they were retired with limited income, but I couldn't keep supporting them while Emily drained resources without responsibility. My husband knows all of this, and he can't stand Emily. Not just because she's freeloading, but because she makes him deeply uncomfortable. From the very beginning, she has flirted with him in ways that were far from innocent. She's made inappropriate comments, tried to touch him, and even sent late-night texts despite him asking her to stop. Whenever I confront her, she brushes it off as just joking. What makes it worse is how my parents react. Instead of calling her out, they dismiss it as harmless. They laugh it off as though it's some silly schoolgirl crush. Years ago, when my then-boyfriend, now husband, first met my parents, my mom outright told him he'd make a better match for Emily. My dad even agreed. Over time, these kinds of remarks became a recurring theme. Even on my wedding day, my mom pulled my husband aside and asked if he was sure about marrying me, like she was hoping he'd walk away and choose my sister instead. The betrayal crushed me. Although my parents apologized later, the behavior never stopped. At family events, they deliberately try to seat my husband next to Emily or make comments suggesting they'd be perfect together. When I finally put my foot down, my mom excused Emily's behavior by saying she'd never had a boyfriend and just idolized my husband. My dad even asked, "What's the harm in taking a photo with her if it makes her happy?" That was the breaking point. My husband and I cut contact, skipping birthdays and family gatherings. But when my parents' 20th anniversary came, my mom begged me to attend, saying extended relatives would notice if I didn't show. My husband initially refused, but then suggested attending might actually work in our favor. If Emily acted out, we could finally expose the truth in front of everyone, so we went. At first, everything seemed fine. My parents were thrilled we showed up. My mom hugged me, saying she hadn't expected it. Dinner went smoothly, until an aunt teased Emily about still being single. When cousins pressed her, my mom chimed in with a loud laugh. "Well, Emily may not have a boyfriend, but she does have a huge crush on her sister's husband." She pointed at my husband, giggling. My dad laughed even harder. I froze in disbelief. My mom kept going, telling my aunt how Emily had always been fond of him. Then my aunt, half joking, asked my husband if he had any brothers Emily could date. Emily sat there blushing, smiling faintly, but didn't deny anything. She soaked in the attention. That's when I snapped. I stood up and demanded, "How dare you talk about my husband like this?" The room fell silent. I reminded my parents of the promises they'd made, to respect boundaries, to stop crossing this line. Clearly, those promises meant nothing. I addressed the entire table. "Do you honestly think it's normal for a sister to have a crush on her sibling's husband, and for a family to laugh about it?" Then I turned to Emily. I exposed everything: her years of inappropriate flirting, her unwanted texts, her attempts to touch my husband, her constant invasions of boundaries. Her face went pale. I confronted my parents too, reminding them of the countless times they'd implied my husband should have chosen Emily instead, even on my wedding day. I asked them if they had any idea how twisted and disrespectful that was. No one spoke. My aunt, who had laughed earlier, looked stunned when I asked if she'd ever say something like that about her own daughter's husband. She admitted she wouldn't. Exactly. So why was it okay when my parents did it to me? My father clenched his fist, his face red with anger, but I didn't back down. "Don't say a word. Don't even try. Honestly, Mom and your precious daughter seem to have great chemistry. Maybe the two of them should get together, too. Just a thought." That's what my husband threw back at my parents. The words hit like a bomb. My mom's face drained of color while my dad's jaw clenched. My husband wasn't finished. His voice cut through the stunned silence. "Since everything is just a joke to you, I guess your affair years ago was just another laugh too, right? Sleeping with the neighbor was just for fun? Go ahead, let's all laugh about that." The entire table froze. My mom's eyes widened in shock. He didn't stop. "An innocent crush, right? That's what you're calling it. So what about when you went behind your husband's back? That didn't mean anything either, just a game?" Every word he spoke was true. This wasn't speculation, it was a secret buried deep in our family. Years ago, my mother had been unfaithful with a neighbor. My father found out, but she begged him to stay. For the sake of us kids, he did. Over time, he pretended to forgive her, but the betrayal never really disappeared. My husband only knew this because I told him in confidence. Before we even walked into the anniversary dinner, he asked if I'd be okay with him using that knowledge if things went too far. I told him, "You use whatever you need. Defend yourself at all costs." Now, faced with the truth dragged into the open, my mom panicked. Her laughter vanished. She snapped at my husband, shouting that he had crossed a line, that he had no right to dig up old wounds. My dad immediately sided with her, calling my husband disrespectful and cruel. But I stood beside my husband. "You crossed the line the moment you turned my marriage into the punchline of your sick jokes," I shot back. "The moment you kept treating Emily like a child while she harassed my husband over and over. She's not a kid. She's an adult who needs a reality check. What she's doing is disturbing. And you two defending it is worse." My mother's eyes filled with tears as she tried to play the victim. She cried loudly in front of everyone, hoping to win sympathy, painting me as the cruel daughter who embarrassed her. But no one rushed to comfort her. Everyone was too stunned by what they'd just heard. Emily, of course, eventually exploded. She accused me of ruining the celebration. "You always make yourself the victim," she screamed. I turned on her. "This wouldn't be happening if you had stopped it. You let Mom announce your creepy crush like it was cute. You sat there blushing like a schoolgirl watching the star quarterback. You didn't say a single word to stop it. You loved the attention." Emily tried to argue that it wasn't that bad, but no one believed her. At that point, the night was beyond saving. My parents and Emily started yelling at each other, trying to twist the story and point fingers, but my husband and I had already done what we came to do. We left. As we walked out, I turned back and told them, "Don't contact us again unless you're ready to take real responsibility. If that day never comes, then don't bother reaching out when one of you dies. We're done." Afterward, relatives sent messages of support. Even my aunt, who had laughed at the beginning, admitted she was wrong and apologized for staying silent. Strangely, the outcome was better than I expected. My husband was right. It was better to rip the bandage off in one go. The aftermath has been oddly quiet. I expected more calls, but only a couple came and they went to voicemail. I listened, and the tone was calmer than before, almost fearful. My parents sounded like they were walking on eggshells, terrified we might reveal even more secrets. They're right to be afraid. We've already exposed enough, and we aren't hiding anything else. Sure, we could have worded things differently, but in that heated moment, the truth spilled out exactly as it needed to. After leaving that night, my husband and I grabbed fast food. Over burgers and fries, we actually laughed for the first time in weeks. For once, we felt relief. Nearly 6 months later, things escalated. Despite the warnings, Emily kept sending disturbing love letters to my husband. Even after we threatened police action, she wouldn't stop. Then, a month ago, we shared wonderful news. We were expecting our first child. We posted it online, excited to celebrate. Big mistake. A few days later, my husband came home from work to find Emily waiting on our porch. She jumped up as soon as she saw him, trying to approach. He immediately felt unsafe. He rushed back to his car while she ran after him, begging him to talk to her. He called me, panicked. I raced home, and together we called the police. Since we already had reports about her letters, officers had no problem taking her in for a few days. My parents posted bail, but this time, Emily still faced trial. Our lawyer filed for a restraining order, which was granted. He also explained that defending Emily in court would drain my parents financially, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, depending on the attorney. That gave us some peace. Even if Emily avoided a heavy sentence, at least my parents would finally feel the consequences of enabling her. Time passed. A lot changed. First, Emily broke her bail terms by trying to approach my husband again. That violation cost my parents the bail money. Second, Emily lost her case. She didn't have a public defender. My parents hired a private lawyer, which must have cost them dearly. In the end, she spent 6 months in custody between pre-trial and sentencing. The court also ordered long-term therapy. Third, my parents' marriage collapsed. My father finally had enough. Years of humiliation, his wife's old affair resurfacing, Emily's destructive behavior, the financial toll, it all broke him. He filed for divorce. My mother kept Emily with her, though not as a dependent. Emily is an adult after all. Still, they ended up living together, scraping by because both had to go back to work. Savings were gone. Fourth, extended family cut ties. Relatives who once looked the other way stopped lending money and unfriended them online. Fifth, their reputations suffered. Everyone in town knows the truth now. They struggled to rent after losing their home, and while my dad moved out of state, my mom and Emily relocated to a nearby town because Emily isn't allowed to leave the state under court order. Sixth, our life is finally peaceful. Emily may technically still be out there, but the restraining order and her criminal record keep her in check. Even she isn't foolish enough to risk another prison term. Seventh, motherhood. It's everything I hoped for and more. And honestly, looking back at all the pain, I feel nothing but gratitude that my husband and I stood our ground. We tore the mask off, and yes, it destroyed them, but it saved us. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a comment, hit subscribe, follow for more, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next one.